So as promised, E-ratio gets its own video. So E-ratio is an advanced measure to determine how much actual edge you have after a signal occurs, and it also can provide you an event horizon. So I'll explain that. And again, if you haven't already read this, please go to buildalpha.com/E-ratio, where I have a whole write-up, including the example and the calculations. It's a short read. It is my number one favorite indicator or performance metric or fitness function or whatever you want to call it. I will immediately throw out strategies if their E-ratio, the blue line, is below 1, and I'm looking for long strategies, or if it is above 1 and I'm looking at short strategies. So what is E-ratio? So E-ratio is the average favorable movement divided by the average adverse movement, and everything is normalized for average true range. So this means that the numbers will almost always be the same. The scale should almost always be the same. 1 is always the threshold. So if you're above 1, you get more favorable movement than adverse movement at that time step. Now, what do I mean by time step? Time step, I mean the x-axis. So for example, in this example, this is 5 bars after the signal on average. How much edge do we have? So you can see it's 0.99. So if I had a strategy that held for 5 or more bars, which this strategy is max hold for 3. It's the same random example we used in the last 2 videos. But if I had a strategy that held for 5 or more bars and I was looking at this E-ratio, I would immediately throw out this strategy because there is actually more adverse movement than favorable movement from 5 bars on. And so this is something that you can look at and you could say, hey, it looks like it goes below 1 at 3. I don't want to hold for any more than 3 given this signal. And what do I mean by signal? Signal, I'm talking about our entry signals. So let's just talk about a hypothetical example so I can make things clear. So let's say that at 5, this reading was 1.6. It was way up here at 1.6, not 1.06, but at 1.60. So what does a reading at x equals 5 and y equals 1.60 mean? That means that 5 bars after the signal, on average, we can expect 0.6 more units of volatility in our favor than against us. So if average true range is 10 points, then we can expect on average to receive 6 more points going in our favor 5 bars after the entry than against us. And that's huge because this is, no matter how you come up with data mining or finding strategies or testing, even stuff you've built outside of Build Alpha and importing it into Build Alpha, E-ratio it simply just tells you how much did price move in your favor against how much it moved against you. There's no curve fitting with exits or any kind of anything like that. It's just a raw measure of how much edge is actually in the signal for you to even capture. So for me, ideally, like I said, anything below 1 is an immediate throw out for a long strategy. Anything above 1 is an immediate get rid of for short strategies. Ideally, you really like to be comfortable above that 1.2, 1.3. But as you play around with this, you realize that certain markets give you a little bit more than others. If a market's more mean reverting or trend following, that might play into it. And also the time frame you're looking at also plays really, really big into this. I know a lot of guys look at the intraday stuff. It's hard to get a lot of edge in your favor on the intraday stuff. Whereas if you move out to some of the trending markets on the daily time frame, you can really get that E-ratio up there, pushing towards 2, 1.6, 1.8. And that's something where you could be pretty confident that you actually have found some underlying edge and let's go ahead and continue to build a system around it, or you go ahead and use this system. In my mind, that's definitely something on the checklist for me, a high E ratio. All right, guys, I hope I made that as clear as possible. If not, check out the link in the blog post, buildalpha.com/E ratio. No hyphens, pretty simple. All right.